All right, welcome back. Joining us now is lawyer Gillian Hnatiw, one of Canada's leading experts in gender-based violence with experience in sexual assault cases. So, Gillian, we're really glad to have you here, especially today with this verdict that we are waiting to hear what's going to happen. And we're still awaiting the final verdict in this very high-profile sexual assault trial of 5 former World Junior hockey players. That's Cal Foote, Dylan Dubé, Alex Formenton, Carter Hart, and Michael McLeod all pled not guilty to a sexual assault alleged to have taken place at a London hotel back in June of 2018 after a Hockey Canada gala. So at the center of this case was the issue of consent. And in her remarks so far, the judge reasoned that she didn't find the complainant's evidence to be credible or reliable, and that the Crown failed to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. So we expect a verdict by now, but it's been 3.5 hours and the judge is still ruling. So is it normal for verdicts to take this long, Gillian?
Yeah. It's normal for reasons to be this long because it's the judge's roadmap for how she reached her decision. She's already told us what the verdicts are going to be. There's going to be acquittals across the board. If she said that the Crown has just failed to discharge its onus, that's the only possible outcome. Oh, wow. I understand why the media is being so cautious, but that's the only place that this is leading at this point.
All right, and the judge found that, as you just mentioned, that EM's evidence was not credible or reliable. So what evidence was she considering here?
So she was really primarily considering the evidence and testimony of EM, which was given over, I believe, 9 days on the stand. There was some additional sort of peripheral evidence, but that was before the court. But as is almost always the case in sexual assault trials, at least criminal ones, the case rises and falls on the evidence of the complainant. Sometimes you hear that these are he said, she said matters. Here there were 5 he's. Only one of them testified. And so there's no evidence from any of the other 4 for the judge to scrutinize.
Okay. Let's talk about the issue of consent, because this case really hinged on that question of consent. And I don't think many people are aware necessarily of also the law, the way Canadian law looks at consent. And what do you think that this, maybe you can talk about that, and also what misconceptions about consent do you think this case has exposed?
So I went to high school in the 90s, and I'm quite sure that I had a T-shirt that read "No means no," and that was wrong. That was an inaccurate summary of Canadian law. It's actually that you have to get a yes. Only yes means yes.
And ongoing as well, right?
Yeah.
It's a Canadian law deems it. It's a you need.
It has to be contemporaneous, specific, and voluntary, and so it has to happen in the moment. So I think the first important point is that silence does not equal consent. Just because somebody doesn't say no doesn't mean that you've got a green light to continue until they give you the red light. It's actually the reverse. You have to make sure that there are a willing participant in each act. And so I know that one of the key pieces of evidence that got a lot of scrutiny during the trial was the consent video that was taken by the players after the fact. But it's after the fact, and to me as a lawyer, that didn't have a lot of evidentiary value because she's still in the room with all the same individuals. The power dynamics would still be the same. If you believe her that she felt coerced into participating into the acts, then it would stand to reason that she also felt coerced to make the video. And in any event, consent can't be retroactive. It has to be given in the moment.
Got it.
Okay. I guess this is another follow-up question to that about so then it means, I guess, also that yes, like just as a verbal word has weight, but not all the weight, that the context surrounding when you give the yes matters a great deal, right? Like that you can say yes, but when you're in a room with, say, 5 other people, like that can be, I guess, intimidating sort of conditions potentially. Like, is that what is maybe the gray area in this consent conversation?
Yeah, I think part of the gray area is that she said yes to the initial sexual encounter, and there's never been any dispute about that. What she says she didn't say yes to was the subsequent sexual encounters with either the different individuals or some of those other acts. And so it's not enough to say, well, she was there voluntarily, she had consensual sex with the first player, case closed. There also has to be consent to every subsequent sexual encounter. And so I haven't yet had an opportunity to hear what the judge said about, for example, how she may have consented to the player, I think it was Calfoot, doing the splits over her face, or how she communicated consent to somebody slapping her on the butt. But those, she will have to have found consent in relation to each of those specific acts.
Gillian, as a lawyer who represents victims of sexual assault, what does this decision that we are expecting tell you about pursuing sexual assault cases within Canada's legal system?
I am not a fan of pursuing sexual assault cases through the criminal system because it is very much a blunt instrument. It is set up to weigh evidence in a particular way against particular constitutional standards. And so there's often a lot of chatter about how we make it better for survivors. It works the way it does because we don't want to risk incarcerating innocent people.
Right.
So there will always be that extremely high standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. But these are complicated stories, particularly when there's consensual activity that surrounds the assaults, and our criminal justice system isn't well suited to parse them out. So there are other avenues that for which survivors can seek affirmation, justice, healing, and personally, having done this work for more than 2 decades, not a fan of using the criminal justice system. And I know that that's a controversial opinion, but it's one that I've arrived at over time. That doesn't mean that
It's
you
an
shouldn't...
informed opinion coming from you, right?
Yeah, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't come forward with your allegations. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't seek other avenues towards, as I say, justice, accountability, compensation, all of these things. There is obviously the option of bringing a civil suit, which EM had already done.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are other sort of restorative pathways to accountability and justice that can be explored. So, I mean, primarily for me, sexual assault is really a crime of power. It's not a crime of passion. You know, it's not about sex. It's about the ability to exploit power to take something from somebody else. And so when you look at seeking justice for survivors, it's, for me, about giving them agency and giving them back the power that the sexual assault stripped from them. And so there are options if you are looking for pathways forward to regain your own agency and power.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a question for you then, well, on that vein, is that to me, beyond any specifics of the case, like I haven't read the judge's, full transcript either.
Yep.
But I worry about, what this says for sexual assault survivors generally, who we know also so rarely report generally and bring it forward to the criminal process. Yep. We also know that false accusations in general are like basically negligible, like non-existent, and statistically speaking. And so I just wonder, what you think of the broader impacts of something like this in the Canadian media and the story that it's been, and like certainly something we'll be talking about for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I always worry on days like today where there is acquittal in high-profile sexual assault cases that survivors will take that and internalize it as, I won't be believed, I have no options, there's no ability for me to come forward. And I really strongly want to say to survivors today that if you are contemplating disclosing to somebody and thinking about seeking accountability through other ways, there are still options for you. You should still seek out that support, and you can still be believed.
All right, so I know we have a lot of feelings about this. It's a very heavy topic, and we're still waiting for the verdict to come down. But I know you guys had something. Jess, I know you wanted to speak to what's happening with Hockey Canada because you've had your own experiences, and if you feel comfortable.
Yeah, well, I think even though we don't know the verdict yet, we still have some facts, and correct me if I'm wrong. We know that 5 world junior hockey players, 4 of whom went on to play in the NHL, gathered around in a hotel room and engaged in sexual acts with a 20-year-old. And we know that in 2022, TSN exposed that Hockey Canada used this special fund to quietly settle sexual assault lawsuits over the year, including, as you said, this one with EM, who said she was actually assaulted by 8 players. And I guess, like, I don't mean this rhetorically, maybe I kind of do, but why would Hockey Canada need a special fund for this very thing? You know, reports have been coming out since TSN exposed this. People say it sort of blew the cauldron off the lid, and subsequently we learned that junior hockey players have been the subject of sexual assault investigations by police at least 15 times going back to 1989. And there's been so much research because of TSN's exposure, revealing that men's hockey has a problem with sexism, misogyny, homophobia, racism, and toxic masculinity on and off the ice. And there's also this history of an impulse to cover up any incidents because that's sort of ingrained in the culture itself. And we've known this before TSN blew the lid off. And I think that's why you guys might remember, you were alluding to it, a little experience with saying essentially that I didn't like hockey. I'm paraphrasing because I didn't do it eloquently that day. But saying I didn't like hockey because of the culture around it, because of the bullying, because of the unthoughtfulness, because of incidents I'd seen growing up. Personal experiences that I'd seen happen to other people, not to me, and feeling really, I almost said the S word, really bad that I didn't do more in that moment. And I think the reaction to what I said in 2019 kind of proved my point, because they reacted to what I was saying about the problem with the culture with the same problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, and I shouldn't say just to me, our entire team, like we have security in the parking lot because of that incident, because someone said they didn't like the culture of hockey. Like it's still, as you can see, it still makes me so angry. And so I don't want to make this about me. I do feel very grateful that EM's name will never be out there. Knowing what our team, and it wasn't just me, our entire team, you know, experiences. This is close to a year, you know, and so I don't know if I have a nice way to bow tie it other than I think it's deeply entrenched. I feel very hopeless that this case will do anything to change the culture of that. And again, I'm annoyed that I have to say this, not all hockey players, not your kids, not the girls playing, not this and that. I'm not speaking about that. I feel I can say it with a little more authority now because this has been studied for decades, not just after TSN blew the lid off. It's been studied for decades by academics, by newspapers doing reporting. I don't know what happens after this, but again, I'm glad EM's name is not in the public record.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Jess. That was wonderful. Gillian, we really appreciate you stopping by and giving your expertise on this very important and heavy case.
I'm so glad you got to say that.
And of course, Riley, we have to thank you for being here. Thank you so much also for being here and chiming in on this. All right.
Hey, you, come a bit closer. We've got so many more must-see interviews, spicy debates, lifestyle tips, and pop culture moments. So subscribe to our channel by tapping the logo below and don't miss out.